Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie on Rocket FM.
This week on Paranormal After Dark, I'm joined by Sam again from Paranormal New Zealand, and we're going to talk about the UAP updates and stuff that's been going on around the world in the last few months. How you going, mate?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, yeah, interesting. Trying to go through all this UAP stuff is rather interesting. I'm going to start with the Jake Barber stuff. What's your take on that?
Look, I mean, with a lot of the whistleblowers, I like to believe that it's true, but Jake Barber he's just one of those people that he's just a little bit off to me. For a starter, and I mean, looks aren't everything, but his appearance, he seems quite shocked all of the time, especially with his interviews, and I don't know what that is. Yeah. Whether it's an honesty thing or whether he's just suffering from some sort of PTSD from being in the military.
Well, the whole thing to me, the whole whistleblower thing to me at the moment, I find the whole thing odd. All of a sudden we've got all these whistleblowers coming out, Jake Barber being one of them, and I'm going to get back to him in a minute. But the whole thing to me is, for years and years and years and years and years, you get the odd person come out, right? And then it was like, I can't say too much because of the government. Now there's all these people coming out, and the government seemingly sitting there going, oh, we won't do anything.
It's like it's a slow sort of release, isn't it?
Yeah, Jake Barber to me, I mean, I just the white egg thing, man, I just think he's been watching too much Mork and Mindy, you know?
Yep. But I mean, of course we do laugh now, and it's like, what if it is real? It's like, what if the creators of Mork and Mindy were right all along, but we didn't? Yeah,
well, there is that. Yeah, I'm with you. I've watched a few of his interviews, and I just think too, he's not quite sort of, yeah, I don't know. I like you say, whether he's being evasive because of what his job is in the military, or he's bullshitting, I don't know. But you're right. There's something not right with Jake there. I'm a bit sort of, yeah. But the white egg, I just can't get the image of Mork coming out of that white egg out of my head. Sorry, it just doesn't work for me. That one, I almost think like he's taking the piss, and he's just seeing how long the UFO community are going to buy it before they realise,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's a fake, then he must be thinking that he's catering to a different generation that doesn't know anything about early 70s, 80s television.
Well, that's what I'm almost thinking. I'm almost thinking he's throwing it out there just to see how long it is before someone comes up with that idea, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there is, if you want to follow that track, there is a narrative about, life begins in an egg sort of thing, and it could be going down that track. I mean, from what I've read on, throughout the internet, it's not the only egg-shaped craft that's been found. There was one found in Antarctica, if you believe it, which was covered in hieroglyphics, and there was a creature found inside it. But
yeah, see, all this Antarctic talk, right? It goes right back to the 60s, right? My dad spent a winter and a summer down there in the US bases in the 60s, right? When a lot of this stuff was supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
And he said there was nothing, like there was no one down there hauling things out of the ice. There was no investigation. And he was on the site. He was like a Navy builder building the bases there. Had all these scientists there, and he said they were literally doing weather bloody things. There was nothing weird, nothing like secretive being stored away that they couldn't. So I don't know. It's having talked to a couple of people who've been down there. They're like, yeah, it wasn't on our base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would they talk about it?
Well, I don't know. Well, my God, I think the old man would tell me privately, yeah. But it's literally, he said he saw nothing kept secret down there. He had access to every building in the place at McMurdo, and there was nothing untoward around, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, people like to create stories as well, don't they?
I guess Antarctic's an easy target too, because you can make shit up, and how's anyone going to disprove it?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's allegedly a no-fly zone there, so I'm guessing that,
but
who's going to question it?
Well, it's a bit like the Nazi, they say there was a Nazi base down there, and that kind of thing. Just digressing briefly, I never got my head around that. If the Nazis had a big base down there, why'd they lose the war? If they were with the aliens in a base down the Antarctic, why'd they lose the war? It doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, I mean, I was just listening to another article, another podcast, and it was based on that story as well. I forget the name of the pilot that released the information, but there was supposedly 2 alien spacecraft that met him as he was flying through, and they had the swastikas on them as well. But I think that has since been debunked, as it was part of a diary that was allegedly written by him, but it was found that it was fictional, but just used his name. Yeah.
Is that Admiral Byrd you're talking about?
Yeah, that's
because he went down there on an expedition in the 30s, and the story I read was he was looking for the Nazis. But I mean, to me, if the Nazis had a base down there and they were working with aliens, they wouldn't have lost the war, would they?
No.
Anyway,
either that, or if there is one, they still don't know the war's over.
Yeah, well. Anyway, back onto the UAPs. The other intriguing thing, I know we've had a discussion online about this, the Colombian balls. They're fascinating.
They are. I mean, but a lot of the things with the South American disclosure is sort of interesting. I mean, it looks as fake as anything, but it's like, is there something to it?
Yeah, I mean, they were weird though, because they looked like they moved like balloons, but they didn't look like balloons, if that makes sense. They looked quite solid objects, and but then you see the thing I struggle with now is AI is so damn good now, you just can't tell what you're looking at. But it kind of, like you say, South America is notorious for having these things pop up, and even other paranormal things popping up, and then you have to say, well, are we just going, it's third world South America, they're just making it all up, or is it actually for real? I mean,
is there a race for disclosure as well? And maybe they're right, the US are wrong, and I'd say US would try to have a bit of a stronghold of all people trying to release information. But,
there has been stories of things in Colombia and Peru and various other things popped up over the years, and the US have turned up down there and taken it away. So it kind of fascinates me, that whole thing, because the US supposedly think they have a right to all this stuff, and the rest of the world doesn't have anything. But clearly the rest of the world does have UFO stuff going on. So the whole disclosure thing about hearings and that, and when's it going to be disclosed, how do we know that it's going to be in America? They might turn up on the bloody lawn of the Beehive tomorrow. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Well,
that's right, yeah. I mean, I guess in terms of the US, they need to be careful of that as well. If they want to be the first to do it and say that they've cracked the technology and they've reversed the technology, I would say that they probably haven't, otherwise they would have done it by now.
Yeah, I would say so, and we'd have bases on Mars and stuff. But it just seems arrogant that they think that the aliens are dealing with them, and they're not going to disclose themselves until till our Senate wants to do it. Well, I'm afraid there's a whole globe here. If they decide they want to turn up in South America and reveal themselves, they're going to turn up in South America, and I don't think the US is going to be able to do anything about it.
Yep. Well, I mean, in South America, Russia, China, anywhere. I mean, you look at landmass. If there's a place that you need to land, it's probably going to be Russia or China.
Well, see, now China. Now, I'm going to say something about China here, and I don't want any listeners to take this the wrong way, okay? But I have a theory, right? A lot of descriptions of ETs over the years kind of look a little bit like, Asian people. We often have that description of the eyes and the facial features and that. Now, looking at Earth, we have all these different races of humans. Now, you have to say that they do look a lot different to what even the black and white people look similar in terms of facial features and stuff, right? Yeah. And the Chinese civilization goes so far back. And when I say civilization, I mean, language, technology, everything goes so far back. Could they be the descendants of an alien race? And it's not being racist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard it. I mean, I've heard, seen videos of Asian people asking the same question.
Really? Yeah. Well, because it is quite a contrast, and you do wonder if that's part of that whole thing. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm trying to keep on track. UAPs.
Talk about, isn't there?
Yeah, Matthew Brown, the border control guy. My take on him is, I watched the interview with him and Corbell and Knapp, and he just went off track and started talking all this religious crap, and I suddenly thought, are you just a nutter?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems to be a bit of a popular narrative at the moment with the whole religious side of it. I think in the beginning, when the disclosure was starting to ramp up again, it was, the narrative was along the lines of the remote viewing, but now it seems to take a turn for the religious side, and there is good, there is evil still, and I don't know, maybe is that something to do with the new Pope? Being American, I'm not too sure. But who knows? But I mean, in terms of that interview, I think a lot of it was controlled by Corbell and Knapp. I mean, that interview could have been one interview by itself, and yet they sort of had to split it up into three, and neither of those three interviews, I mean, it was all part of the same interview, but the episodes I'm talking about, they really never went anywhere.
No, they didn't, and but also I kind of felt at times he appeared to be reading. You know what I mean? His eyes looked like he was either watching someone or reading something, and his delivery didn't feel natural to me.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, he's not selling a book yet.
No,
there's, as far as I'm aware, there's no financial gain for him to be saying what he's saying. However, on the other hand, I'd say the financial gain would be for Corbell and Nat.
Yeah, exactly.
And splitting those into 3 episodes, as I say, and there's advertising all on the way in between those.
Yeah.
They know people are going to listen to it.
Yep.
So who knows? Maybe there was a bit of a cash in hand at the end of it for him, but yeah, I don't know. If I was in that position and I knew that I'd seen something, like Matthew Brown claims to have seen, mate, I'd be nervous.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of. It's getting back to my theory at the beginning, where suddenly there's a big rash of them, and I'll get to more of it in a minute. My theory on it, but yeah, Matthew Brown, you're right. It seemed to be controlled by more so by Corbell than Knapp, really. But I mean, Corbell seems to control a lot of stuff there, and I felt there was a couple of questions where Corbell was leading him. He would throw a leading question to the guy. Yeah.
I mean, and you and I have spoken, online about this as well, and I think there's going to be, my prediction is there'll be a Corbell and Knapp divide eventually.
Well, Knapp's certainly losing credibility with me the more he aligns himself to Corbell, and I just watched something before we came to air where there was supposedly a latest revelation by Corbell, and he was on a TV show on MSNBC or something, and every second word was George Knapp. So it was like, me and George Knapp, and I'm like, you're trying to get yourself credibility by chucking George's name in there or something? I don't know, but I think George is going to have to distance himself if he wants to keep any credibility in the whole UAP area. That's just my view anyway.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot, I mean, with a lot of facets of the paranormal as well, the more popular you get, the pressure is on to actually come up with something good. And I guess they're at the point now where they're just looking at anything, and they're gonna run with it and make it sound good, even if it's not.
Well, I think the thing is with Nappy, it was always he was always credible in that the way he looked at things. He was an investigative journalist, but Corbell just comes across to me as a fanboy.
Absolutely.
And Knapp going along with that is just bringing Knapp into the same area, and it's like Corbell's using Knapp's credibility to be the big I am, and it's always about I'm going to have hearings, and I've got witnesses for hearings, and blah blah blah. hearings don't mean shit. I mean, why have a hearing in front of Congress? We don't get to see any of the evidence or hear any of it. It's a load of bollocks, right? Yeah, it's like he's trying to tout himself to I'm important, look at me, you know?
Yeah. Anything that's worth saying, they go, we're going to go to a skiff.
Yeah, I know. Bollocks. Well, why bother? You know, who cares? The politicians won't tell us. So you know, the best thing they could do, if Corbell's really got all these whistleblowers, to hell with it. And he reckons, they're willing to come forward. Okay, have a public bloody thing somewhere where it's broadcast worldwide. And hey, if the broadcast suddenly gets shut down, then you know the governments of the world are a little bit concerned about it. But all this going to Congress and having hearings means dick to me, because it doesn't achieve anything. It looks like they're doing something.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Talking about that, you know, part of that was also the 2027 alien invasion that might be in 2027, or it might be later, or it might be this and that. And someone told them this, and it's kind of, you know, what do you think about that 2027 thing?
Oh, I mean, again, that's another narrative that pops up quite a bit now as well. Yeah. And I mean, it might not be an alien invasion. I always consistently hear that something big is going to happen in 2027. Well, I mean, that's pretty broad, isn't it?
Yep.
You know, I've heard stories that, you know, the remote viewers can't see past 2027.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the Vatican has a list of popes that were predicted right up until 2020. Yeah, you know, again, it's the same with your story about Antarctica. It's like, we don't have that information. We're not partial to being able to tell whether that's correct or not.
Well, see, I saw an interesting thing online about you talking about the Vatican. I had an interesting thing online in that, I can't remember where it was. I went into some thread one night and read it and got deep, you know. But I've always believed that a lot of the reason why stuff hasn't been disclosed is because the religions of the world have a lot to lose. Potentially have a lot to lose. And this thread I got into was that 2027, with this new Pope, is the Vatican are actually going to reveal what they have about it. And the US government particularly isn't very happy, because they've been benefiting from the technology or whatever for 70 odd years. But the Vatican has decided, especially with this Pope, that it's time to reveal, which is a big call if it is, because they're basically blowing their whole narrative, aren't they? But that was a thread that I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, the new Pope is conveniently American. He comes across as you know, against the general politics of America at this stage, but you know, there could just be a front.
Could be, but he also spent a lot of time in South America, so that maybe there's something to that connection as well. You know, maybe he knows some stuff down there, or he learnt some stuff down there, and that's why he got put in the job. I don't know, but certainly, perhaps the thread I was on said that's why the Vatican has things that end in 2027, because that's basically the end of the church as they know it, because of the revelation.
They did have that small little hearing themselves. Was it last year or the year before, where they basically accepted that, you know, there was something to the paranormal. They didn't really allude to whether it was UFOs or, you know, something a bit more spiritual, but they basically accepted that, we accept that it's real.
That's right, and it's interesting because they have their own observatory, so they're certainly looking for something, and they have been for centuries. So they know there's, or they're curious about something.
Yeah, or they're covering the bases.
True. I'm talking.
Well, when in 2027 something happens and they turn, you know, everyone turns to religion and say, well, why didn't you tell us?
Exactly. I'm talking to Sam Collier here on Paranormal After Dark. We're talking UAPs. We'll be right back. I've got some more people to talk about, because I'm very, very, very sceptical on some of these whistleblowers.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Want some more understanding. Well, I need some help, my friend. one who will not lie to me. Please tell me where I stand. Well, I can't help feeling so misled. Now I'm all alone. Well, I feel I've lost my will to fight. I'm so far from home. Darkness falls upon me, my mind clouds in rain. Nothing's feeling real to me, consumed by the pain. Dying is hard when you're on your own. Time has come to leave a mortal cold. Lies I heard, hide the truth I know. Deceiver comes for me.
Christchurch band Tempest from 1993's Precious Time and the track Deceiver. And we're back now. Now, the other whistleblower thing that I found interesting, you know, we had this Lou Elizondo turn up a couple of years ago, and he seemed to be quite credible with stuff that he was throwing around and believable and that. And even I sort of thought, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this. But in recent times, some things have come out that I thought, oh, really? And the one that strikes me is the guy who came. I know he was on some of the Art Bell shows years ago where he was pushing himself as a whistleblower. He then came out and admitted that he was a misinformation agent for the government, Richard Doty.
Yep.
Now, Richard Doty made a statement a few months ago that he was actually offered a job recently with the Space Force. Now, this is critical. With the Space Force to work with Lou Elizondo on disinformation. Now, that was an interesting statement for 2 points. One, that he was claiming that Elizondo was doing misinformation, and two, he was saying he was connecting Lou Elizondo to the Space Force. Now, what got me was Elizondo, up until that point, had never mentioned the Space Force. Now, so does that lead to the fact that Doty's telling the truth, that Elizondo was being evasive and all this, he worked for this ATIP thing, he didn't really, he was a misinformation agent, or is Doty just shit-stirring? But certainly the fact that Doty came out and admitted he was a misinformation agent and that he mentioned Elizondo, that's interesting now, especially with the fact that Elizondo got caught out presenting a photo of something that was supposedly a UFO in a shadow, and it ended up that it was crops, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I bought the book.
Yeah.
I bought Lou Elizondo's book, and I thought when he first sort of started making noise, I thought, oh, this guy's onto it. This guy knows what he's talking about, and this guy, he's going to be the guy. But then, a lot of the photos that he was producing were very quickly debunked, and a lot of the stories coming along that, as you say, he was a misinformation agent, and I find it quite disappointing. I'd like it to not be true, but I'd like him to be. But the same with a lot of the other whistleblowers. It's a lot of, I know something you don't know.
Yeah.
And I can tell you so much, but I can't tell you everything. And it's like, well, somebody just tell us.
But that's exactly right, and the whole thing for me, and see, I don't know, you've probably been away and didn't see it. There was a thing yesterday, he's now come out with this photo claiming that they're alien bodies, but it's blurry. It's blurry, like, what is it, And I'm thinking, so even after this revelation of Doty claiming that he was going to work with Elizondo and virtually admitting that, he's still trying to tout this stuff. So it makes you wonder what's really going on. Does Doty have an agenda? Like, maybe the government's put Doty up to this to try and discredit Elizondo, or is Elizondo just, the whole thing seems to be falling apart with Elizondo. It is interesting, and like you say, there's a lot of this, we have stuff but we can't tell you. Corbell's notorious for that, but the thing that really bugs me, and this gets back to David Grush, it's all this, I spoke to somebody who said they read, or I spoke to somebody who said they saw. That's hearsay, right? Why are they holding this Grush guy up in such a light when he hasn't actually see, Elizondo at least said, I actually saw this document myself, or I saw whatever, whereas this guy is just saying, I spoke to someone who told me they saw. I mean, I've spoken to people who told me they've seen a ghost in a theatre. Doesn't mean they saw a ghost in the theatre, does it? No. But for some reason this Grush is being held up there as he's this guy, he's got all this information, but really when you think about it, he hasn't, he's just got hearsay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess when he first came out as well, it was more than what we'd had in many, many years, without, talking about the New York Times and the Go Fast and the Gimbal and that. When Grush decided to come out, I mean, I can't quite remember. I think he has mentioned that he has seen non-biologicals, and he also, again, he knows somebody who knows somebody who's... the thing to me that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense is that at that stage, he probably could have said himself, like Lou Elizondo said, look to the oceans. But then, no, let's wait a few more years, and then Lou Elizondo says, look to the oceans. There's bases in the oceans.
Well, I mean, if you look at, they could be just using history for that, though, because when you think about it, if you go back through historical documents, in fact, right back to Christopher Columbus, those guys reported a light coming out of the ocean back then. So there's either something to that story that, yes, maybe the oceans is the answer, or they've just been clever enough to pick up this out of historical documents, and let's throw that out there because there's at least some credibility because there's historical reports about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing as well is if you're looking at the oceans, what does it stop you from doing? It stops you from looking at the sky, doesn't it?
Exactly. Good point, actually. I never thought of that. You're dead right. It does, doesn't it? But, yeah, that whole... that's what's sort of annoying me about this whole state of the whistleblowers thing at the moment is that it's... most of it's hearsay, you know. And then, of course, you go to Dr. Stephen Greer, who I just... I don't know what you think of him, but Stephen Greer, like, he's really interesting to listen to. Like, some of his stuff, you go, well, but he's just out there, eh?
Yeah, I've never been a fan, to be honest. I think he's just a little bit too way out there. Again, I mean, is that me just being afraid that the level of things that he's saying is if it's wrong, I'm going to look like someone with egg in my face, or what if he is right?
Well, the thing is with Greer, credit to him, he's not afraid to like pin his flag to the mast. Like he doesn't toe the mainstream line of all the other whistleblowers. He literally, this is it. But it's just. He's out there, man. He some of the stuff he comes out with, and then when if someone questions him, man, he loses his rag big time. It's quite funny. I find him entertaining. Like you say, I don't really like his stuff, but I find him bloody entertaining to listen to. And I know when Art Bell used to have him on his show, Art Bell, if you listen closely, was almost sort of kind of taking the piss, but kind of humouring him as it were. But yeah, he's a completely different, I guess, line again, and if we say these whistleblowers are all disinformation agents, right, on behalf of the government, where does he fit in? Because he's completely throwing a spanner in the works, eh?
Well, he is, but also it's just recently. I think it was last week. I think I may have sent you the link.
Yep.
He is allegedly an agent of Israel. So,
that's right. Yeah.
He was a resident and he was married there. Not only do they question that, but it's like, well, does anyone actually know what he was a doctor of?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you could be a doctor of anything, eh? Yeah. No, he's really, really, really... That's one that really sort of throws me, that one, because
it's left field, but I mean, yeah. I mean, it's very fitting that this information comes out now, especially with things that are going on globally, but who knows?
It's certainly...
It could all be liars.
Well... Yeah, they certainly could be, and this gets me back now to right back to the beginning, right back to what I consider the beginning, basically. And I say the beginning because it's kind of when we had media and things were being released. The one guy that still, to me, and I think to you as well, is the most credible of all of them, and it's because he didn't go, I spoke to someone who said they saw, I spoke to someone who said they read. This guy put it all on there and said, I worked on this is what I saw, and his story's never changed. Bob Lazar.
Yep, he's definitely one of my favourites.
Well, he's almost the most credible of all of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, what has he gained from this? Maybe a few interviews. What has he lost? He's lost his marriage, job, family. He's consistently being raided by the FBI. I mean...
That's the irony of it, because he was laughed at and ridiculed for years and years and years, about this stuff. His story never changed. Like you say, he lost all this stuff. The people tried to kind of discredit him, where he worked, where he didn't work, whatever. And then all these other ones come out, and Elizondo's credible, Doty's credible, which we found out wasn't. Brown, yeah, but they're all like very evasive. This guy's like, this is what I saw, this is what I did. And he's never changed it. And he's the one that they take the piss out of. It's kind of strange to me.
I guess that one of the major differences is that he doesn't have a military background. He was just a civilian who decided to stick a jet engine on the back of, what was it, Toyota or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
And, they went, oh, he's the one.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. You know that of all the whistleblowers that you've seen, and you know, Doty came out shortly after Lazar, and then he's admitted he was full of shit, and he alleges he was doing it on behalf of the government. So who knows? But you know, Lazar's story never changed. He gained nothing from it. Still to this day, there's a lot of stuff that he says that hasn't been disproven, and the government's never admitted it. And he said, I saw it or I read it. All these other guys, apart from Jake Barber, who claims he saw Mork's egg, all the others have said, well, I was given this photo, or I was told about this document, or I was told about someone said they saw something, you know? So the whole whistleblower UAP thing is very, very odd. It's the fact that the only one you can really say has any credibility is Bob Lazar.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like I said, he's lost so much, gained not enough.
Yeah.
He's consistently being raided. I mean, he's got the element 16 or whatever it is, and they think he's got some of it, some of the that powers some of these craft,
and yet they won't admit that they've got the craft. That's the interesting thing. This is what I'm saying. They keep saying, no, Bob Lazar's full of shit, but they keep going and looking for it.
Yeah, it's Bob Lazar's full of shit, but we're going to look for the stuff that, just in case.
Yeah, they keep
he's not full of shit.
Yeah, they keep raiding him. They keep putting disinformation agents out there to try and discredit him and all that. But they've always said, no, it's all lies. Well, you know, this is the other thing that gets me. They don't do that with Elizondo. They don't do that with Matthew Brown. You haven't heard about Stephen Greer, any of these guys being raided consistently.
No.
It's only Lazar.
Well, and that's kind of telling, isn't it?
Well, to me it is, yeah. You know, and you can say, yes, these guys have all got ex-military backgrounds, but so what? That doesn't matter. If they're out there and they're spilling national secrets, well, surely you still raid their places to see what they've got. Especially someone like Elizondo, who alleges to have all this information that he's releasing. Surely you'd be raiding his house, trying to find what he's got on disk, what he's got on USB drive, what photos he's got, what documents.
Yep.
But they don't appear to be.
And the same with Matt Brown. I think they would have done it already.
Well, you'd think so, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what security is like. I mean, who's not to say that he hasn't made copies of what he saw?
Well,
surely that would be investigated. But apparently, you know, according to him, when he went to his hires and said that, hey, I've seen something that I shouldn't have, they were along the lines of, oh yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, which kind of, yeah, that's what is weird, and that's kind of like the drones thing. You know, I saw something pop up again today. I haven't watched it yet, but they're like, oh, don't worry about it. They're just drones. Well, hang on, they're flying over military bases. Like, you know, if that was like Iran firing a bloody drone, you'd be up there shooting it down. But they're sitting there going, don't worry about it. They're just experimental drones. Seriously? So I can go to America tomorrow, buy a drone, and just fly it over a base, and you won't do anything about it? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's convenient that, you know, we know what they are, but it conveniently stopped before inauguration, didn't it?
Exactly. It's that whole thing too is interesting, because you always hear this thing about, you know, the presidents aren't read in, there's levels of secrecy above the presidents, right? Now, I reckon that's true, and I only reckon that's true based on Trump. Because that guy's such a loose unit and he wants attention. If he had the knowledge, he'd be the guy out there announcing that, you know, I've done a deal with the aliens because I'm a great deal maker. You know what I'm saying? If he knew something. So I reckon they're keeping it. They do keep it from the president, because if that guy had it, he'd be saying, I've made a deal with the aliens, or Iran, the aliens are on my side and they're going to invade you, and all this. You know the crap he talks. He would. He's a nut bar. He wouldn't be able to hold his tongue. So I think this. I used to think, bullshit. Why would there be more levels above the president? But now I'm beginning to think there probably is, because they're definitely keeping it from him. They have to be.
Do you think there's any credibility to? I don't know whether you've heard the story about Jackie Gleason and President Nixon.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and they were having a few drinks together, and Nixon turns to him and says, "Well, let's you want to see some stuff, and he takes Jackie Gleason off to go see some UFOs and some frozen alien beings.
I mean, it's an interesting story, right? But Nixon was, while he was a crook, I guess you could say, similar to Trump, he wasn't a nutter like Trump. You know, like I can imagine Trump doing that, because Trump would be trying to big note himself and show what a hard man he was, and I dealt with the aliens and all this stuff. But Nixon, I don't think Nixon would have done that. I don't know, but I just don't think he would have. You know, just my mate the actor here will just take you and show you some stuff. I don't know. That's my view.
Different times though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The one that I do find interesting though is the one about Eisenhower supposedly meeting extraterrestrials. That, to me, in the 50s, is a more credible story than, oh, come on, Jackie, let's go and look at some aliens, right? Because, you know what I mean? Because that's the sort of thing that, at the time, you know, in the 50s, after Roswell, there was a lot of sightings. There was the UFO wave over Washington. There was a lot of shit going on that back then in the 50s was easy to hide from the public. And if there was a deal to be done, then that's the time to do it. And Eisenhower, being a general, is possibly the guy to meet with him. You know, if there was some sort of... I'm not saying that happened, but to me, if you're going to give me those two stories, I'm more inclined to believe that Eisenhower met somebody than Richard Nixon got on the piss and took Jackie Gleason to see something, you know?
Well, I mean, Jackie Gleason also dedicated his life after that, allegedly, to UFOs. He built a house.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he was just a UFO enthusiast and, you know, made up a story. But I mean, this story was also allegedly kept secret. It wasn't Jackie Gleason that told the story himself. It was his wife, or one of his wives.
Yeah.
After his death.
Yeah, I just don't. Just having studied politics in the US and that a little bit, I just don't think Nixon would be the sort of guy to do that. You know, I don't know. He was as dodgy as hell, and he was keeping stuff from, you know, if there was something there too. I mean, Nixon was paranoid and recorded everything he said in the Oval Office, okay? So if there was something to be seen and talked about, there either could have been a recording or, I don't know.
I mean, that could have been a result of saying too much or showing too many people the wrong things, I guess. Could have been.
I don't know. It's certainly. I guess you're right. The time, the 50s and 60s, if you were going to expose things to individuals like that, I guess it's the better time to do it. And as I say, like someone like Eisenhower meeting with ETs in the 50s would be a time where you could do that and almost do it away from prying eyes.
Yeah.
And never be exposed until years later. That's quite possible. So if ETs were going to, you know, this is kind of where I don't think a lot of people in the UAP or UFO sort of area think. But you've got to think about. I often think about this for a lot of things of the time. Having spent a lot of time in theatre, people will say things about, oh, that show's offensive or whatever, and I'll say, well, it was of the time. It was written in the 30s or 40s, right? So, Same as UAPs, of the time. In that time, if I was an extraterrestrial and I've been observing Earth for, you know, centuries, you can go right back to the airship sightings that we saw, right? If I'm an alien and I'm gonna fly around and I'm gonna sort of have a good look, that's the time to do it. 1900s, 1890s, we haven't flown yet. You know, we've got some airships possibly, so the chances of I can get away with buzzing Otago Harbour in something that's shaped like an airship because people are going to say it's an airship, right? Because that's what their brain goes, click, 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 it's an airship. So likewise, the 50s, if I'm an ET and I want to meet the leaders of Earth, I'm more likely to want to do it in a time like that when humankind has technology, but it doesn't have the technology that we have now where everybody's got a camera, everybody's got a recording, there's internet, there's, you know, people can share documents, whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's an easier time to be able to say, let's meet with these people and do a deal. And now is not the time to expose yourselves as much because there's a lot more technology around. Even in the 70s and 80s, you know, when there was a lot of UFO sightings, it was if I was an ET, it would be easier for me to just fly around and go, I'll just fly past that plane over Kaikoura, everyone will just say it's Venus, right? Because the technology wasn't there to actually capture it properly, but like the gimbal, they didn't have that sort of technology. So what a lot of the sightings we see now are quite high up in the atmosphere, or out in the middle of nowhere more often than not, because back then you could easily buzz a town and people wouldn't know what the hell it was, or they'd say it was an airship or whatever. So I think anything that happened in the 50s and maybe into the early 60s, could have happened, because it's the time when it was easier to get away with from both sides. The officials on Earth, and I'm not just saying America, but officials on Earth like the Soviet Union or China, and the extraterrestrials, because there wasn't the prying eyes, there wasn't the technology around, and it was easier to just hide that, and don't write anything down. It'll never be recorded. No one will ever know. So, and witnesses will die, or witnesses will come out and say that something happened, and everyone will laugh at them. So I don't know, but the Gleason one's a little bit later. It's into the 60s when we're starting to get a bit more. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting one. But
it is an interesting one, yeah.
The other one that connects with me with the US presidents that I find fascinating is Jimmy Carter, when he was elected, because I can vaguely recall him being elected where he was adamant he was going to do a thing on UFOs, and the minute he got elected, he just got shut down. No.
Well,
nothing.
allegedly he was debriefed, and whatever he was told brought him to tears.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Jimmy Carter story. So,
and he said no more about it. So, there's probably something to it, but I just think with Trump, there's no way they're going to debrief him, because he's the sort of loose unit that would want to say, I've done a deal and you know you know what I'm saying, I've done a deal with the extraterrestrials because I'm the great deal maker. I don't think they'd risk telling him. Maybe someone like J.D. Vance knows, but I don't think Trump knows.
No. Well, I mean, yeah. Would you really want him with the responsibility of knowing?
Oh, hell no. And as a human, he would be the last person I would want to represent us to extraterrestrials, But yes, it's been very interesting, this UAP thing, the whistleblowers and stuff. We have to have another chat about it sometime too, because it's an evolving thing. There's more people coming out all the time, and more photos and videos, and it's certainly fascinating. The thing that's going to blow my mind is if they actually do reveal it and it turns out it's actually paranormal. It's got nothing to do with aliens.
Well, I mean, there is that narrative again of that it's interdimensional, and it's not outer space, it's not in the ocean, it's out of time and space. Yeah, well, that would blow my mind, the time travel thing, because that's like, whoa, that's even bigger, Yeah. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. We should talk about time travel one day on a show. That could be interesting. That's been Paranormal After Dark, talking about the UAP whistleblowers, Sam's opinion, my opinion. You might not agree with either of us, right? But that's where it stands. That's what we think anyway. And if you're a Jeremy Corbell fan, then okay, that's cool, right? But I don't buy it. I just think he's a fanboy. With that, I just got to say, Sam, thanks for coming on. And remember, it's all just swamp gas at the end of the day. It is swamp gas, yeah.
See you later.
Thanks.
As usual, Sins of Eve to take us out with Creeping.
to ask myself this: are you prepared? Something's falling